Hey, Autoimmune Warriors, welcome to the Stronger Than Autoimmune podcast. I am so fired up for you to be here. If you're navigating life with an autoimmune condition, you're in the right place. I am your host, Des, and I am not just a podcaster. I am right here in the trenches with you as a fellow autoimmune warrior. We're diving into real, uplifting stories and some seriously smart expert tips and simple lifestyle tweaks that can make a difference in how we feel day to day. Now I've got to give a huge shout out to my amazing listeners. You're the heartbeat of this podcast, and I'm so grateful for you tuning in. If you're loving the vibes, here is how you can keep the love flowing. Drop a rating on Spotify, share a quick review on Apple, or pass this episode along to a warrior buddy who can use a boost of hope. Here are some patients that are killing it for our community. Workers with Autoimmune Ailments Alliance. These folks are fighting the good fight for students and workers like us with autoimmune conditions. Want to get involved or learn more? Swing by WAAA.org. They'll love to have you. Leap Cure. They're all about hooking up patients with cutting-edge clinical trials and putting our voices front and center. Check them out at leapcure.com. Adapt Naturals by Chris Kresser. They offer nutrient-packed supplements based on science. Snag 20% off your first order with my code DEZ, D-E-Z, at Adapt Naturals. From my heart to yours, I'm sending you nothing but love and good vibes. Let's dive in together. Today on the Stronger Than Autoimmune podcast, I'm joined by Toni Engram, a biological dentist, integrative health coach, and the owner of Flourish Dental Boutique in Richardson, Texas. Not too far away, I'm in San Antonio. After facing her own autoimmune challenges, Dr. Engram shifted her entire practice towards whole body health, prevention, and safer dental care. She's passionate about how oral health impacts the rest of the body, and especially how it connects to autoimmune wellness. I'm excited about this conversation because I've never had a dentist on here before. So please, let's just start from the beginning about your journey.
Well, hello. I'm so excited to be here and glad to be talking to another Texas girl. We love San Antonio. What's funny, my last interview was with the guy in Louisiana, and I'm probably closer to him than I am to you.
Yes, Texas is huge.
It is massive. I'm just honored to be here, honored to share my story. I hope that I can leave your audience with maybe just a little bit of hope, because sometimes we get really discouraged when we're struggling with autoimmune issues. So it was back in 2011 when I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease. And in 2011, I was working full-time as an associate dentist. I had my first little one, so I had a toddler at home that I was chasing around. And while I was doing that and working full-time, I also was opening my first practice from scratch, solo practice. I was the only doc. We were doing construction, all that good stuff. So I really was just more busy than my body could handle. And I wasn't eating great. I wasn't taking care of myself. It just wasn't a part of my culture to slow down. I'm type A personality. I like to go, go, go. That's what got me through dental school. What's funny is I actually had symptoms in college and more in dental school and more when I was pregnant. I just didn't know what they were and just kept pressing through. But in 2011, I really couldn't ignore them because I kept getting sicker and sicker. I was getting little viruses all the time, like every single thing my little girl would bring home. Started losing weight, and I wasn't trying to lose weight, was in the bathroom like sometimes 20 times a day in the bathroom. And my doctors, now we would call it gaslighting. But at the time, he was just kind of polite and brushed me off and said, it's probably just some IBS, here, take some peppermint and you'll be fine. Once I started losing weight and having bloody stools, and he really couldn't ignore it anymore. So did a colonoscopy, and he was surprised. He's like, here are the pictures. Here are these ulcers that are actually in your colon. So diagnosed me with Crohn's, and nice man, but said, here are your list of medications. You're going to be on these for forever or until they stop working. Then we're going to put you on stronger medications. And oh, by the way, there's a 40% chance that at some point you're going to need surgery to lose all or part of your colon. I was like, hold on, excuse me. I don't think you understand. I don't have time for that.
Yeah.
And so I took the medications and was just I'm so grateful because the medications did get me into remission really quickly. But that gave me the bandwidth to heal because I just didn't accept that was my fate. Like I even asked him, I was like, well, what do I need to eat or not eat to actually get better? And the doctor was like, Toni, your diet has nothing to do with this. And that just sent off like the red flags. I was like, hold on, that does not make any sense to my logical brain at all. I was in remission, was feeling better. I just went down all of the rabbit holes online by myself. I didn't know about functional medicine, but I was looking for answers on how I could actually feel better. And man, thankfully, I found it. Like I changed my lifestyle. I changed how I ate. I paid way more attention to how I felt when I ate certain things or when I ate a certain way. I learned that Starbucks coffee was not my friend. And that I had to, I could not do these rush through lunch and go right back to seeing patients after 10 minutes. It just didn't work for my body. I had to sit and take a lunch or I would feel terrible for the rest of the afternoon. So I just started learning all of these things that made me feel better. When I was pregnant with my second kiddo, I was still on the medications, but I had been feeling better at that point. Talked to my gastroenterologist, said, looking at the medications, they were like a category C. We knew that one of the medications was excreted in breast milk. When I talked to my gastroenterologist, he's like, I don't think this is worth the risk. He's like, I want you to stay on the medications anyway. I'm a little stubborn. So I asked my OB, hey, let's see what my OB says. And this is where I think medicine should be. And this is where I think the doctor-patient relationship should be, because that doctor, not holistic, not functional in any way, shape, or form, but had a really good informed consent conversation with me, which I've taken that lesson into my practice for years since then. But that doctor was like, okay, I understand why you want to get off the medications. Here's the risk. Here's the pro and con. The risk is if you get off of them, then you could have a flare up. But then he's like, if you have a flare up, here's our game plan. It's not ideal, but you could go back on steroids for a little bit to get you past the flare up. If you do it, when did you feel good versus bad in your first pregnancy? I was like, it was really just first trimester that I felt like crap. And then second and third trimester, my gut was great, did amazing. So third trimester, got down to and weaned myself off of the Imuran, and hallelujah, have never looked back, have never needed to get back on the medications. So I know that's not everybody's story. And so it's not a holier than thou. I did so amazing because my diet's so perfect. Girl, it is not.
I love that you're so down to earth. It must be a Texas thing. No.
I mean, we got to have tacos and we got to have barbecue every once in a while.
No, that is just not human.
And so it's, I've done a follow-up colonoscopy, make sure the gut's looking good. I pay very close attention to my bathroom habits. How are things feeling? How do I feel after meals? When things feel out of balance, I don't push through. I pay attention and I try to give my body whatever it needs. And so that's how kind of my Crohn's story, but what was beautiful about it, so incredibly thankful for. Again, thankful that I went into remission so quickly because I know some people don't. And as I was doing all of this research, was like, okay, Crohn's disease. This is all about inflammation. Yes, it's autoimmune, but it's all about inflammation and this dysbiosis in my gut. Things just got out of balance. And so the inflammation went out of control. Well, what do I treat in my career every single day? I treat tooth decay and gum disease. It is all about inflammation and a dysbiosis in the very first part of your gut, which is your mouth. Mm-hmm. And so I knew that the better I felt, I was like, okay, if I can actually figure this out for myself, if I can figure out how to feel well and actually heal my own gut, then I have to be able to figure this out for my patients too. I have to. And so that's what I did. As I was feeling better and better, I started studying oral systemic health and studied nutrition, got my integrative health coach certification. And then my patients just kind of nudged me the rest of the way. They're like, that's great, Dr. Toni. I love that you're talking about nutrition now, but what are you still doing with fluoride? So then I'd have to study that some more and figure out why they didn't want to use fluoride. And darn it, like, there's actually good evidence not to use fluoride. And then they would say things like, that's great, Dr. Toni. I love that you're not pushing fluoride down my throat anymore, but what are you doing with all these mercury fillings that you're taking out? Like, are you protecting your assistant or me when you're taking these out? So I had to study again, and darn it, they were right. There actually are huge mercury exposures that you can get. Heavy metals is something that thankfully I don't have personal experience with heavy metal illness or heavy metal toxicity. But I did, and that was part of my functional medicine testing. Did I have too much exposure? Yeah. And so learning how to make sure that I'm protecting my patients and myself and my team in the office when we're doing these procedures. So the more I learned, the more I couldn't unlearn. And I really had to shift the practice to a completely biological practice. And it's been just the biggest gift. And I know is why I'm still practicing dentistry, because like the old drill, fill, and bill where I just patch things up and let you go smoke or drink soda or eat a standard American diet, like that was part of what was keeping me sick, because that was so discouraging, because I wasn't really helping anybody. I was just patching holes.
Yeah. So many directions I want to go. I guess I want to go back to the first question I was thinking of, because you said that Starbucks coffee, not to downplay Starbucks, but Starbucks coffee was making me sick. What do you think, or what do you know that's in Starbucks coffee that was making you sick?
Well, I know it's...
Because I know you just heated up some coffee, so I know you still drink coffee.
I sure do. I think it's just so darn acidic, and my digestive system just cannot take that particular coffee. So I try to make sure my coffee is organic when I can, lower acid when I can. I found out that, maybe this is not so good, but I found out that their espresso doesn't bother me. So I actually can do Americano from Starbucks, which is just espresso and water, no sugar. It's still acidic. It's still not good for your teeth, but I try not to do it very often, but it doesn't bother my stomach. And then coffee, yeah, still, like I said, hard to take the type A out of the girl.
Yeah.
I still love my extra energy that I get from a little bit of caffeine.
Thank you for sharing. The other question is, I know you said that your patients, well, I'm glad that you're very, I don't know if it's the type A or just in your nature to be very diligent and paying attention to how you feel, because I try to advocate that with not only my clients also, but I'm trying to let people know, like, pay attention to your symptoms. When do you not feel good?
Yeah.
And so I think that really helped, because pushing through, obviously you did that for so many years until you couldn't ignore it anymore.
Yeah.
But that is the key in figuring out, because everybody's going to be a little different.
So different. Yes.
And also I've noticed that you said that you take that hour or you take that lunch break. What is important? I know for me, taking that lunch break, why it's important, but I want to know from you as an autoimmune survivor or thriver, that hour lunch is important to you still. So tell me why.
Well, I'm able to do it a little bit different when I'm working from home and doing things like this. Things where I'm sitting and it's more relaxed and it's a more calm environment, then I do okay. Like I'm already kind of relaxed and chill. When I'm in the clinic and seeing patients and hopping from room to room, and dentistry is surgery in the mouth on patients who are awake. And I don't know about you, but not everybody loves to be in my chair. They may like me personally, but they don't necessarily like what they do in the dental office. So when I'm having to be on, and I feel very authentic when I practice, but it's still like a performance. I'm on.
Yeah, it's a stressor.
It's a stressor, even though it's a good stressor. So, and I'm an introvert. So if I don't
I don't believe that.
take a break, if I don't take a break to separate and just not talk to people for a few minutes, then, and especially if I'm doing that and eating quickly, then for one, I'm swallowing air and then I get kind of gassy and bloated, and that's no fun in the afternoon. But yeah, I will get kind of cranky. And so I just own that diva part of my personality and say, I will get this time. Do I want to go to lunch with you? No, I don't. Thank you very much for the invitation. But I just need to separate and be away and be able to eat slowly for me.
Yeah.
That is what makes a huge difference, which is so weird. Like it sounds silly when I say it out loud, but that is more important for me than avoiding gluten. Like everybody says, gluten is highly inflammatory. And I agree. Like especially gluten in the US can be just highly inflammatory and not good for you at all. But it was the lifestyle that was more important than the actual ingredient or certain foods.
Right, right. And that completely makes sense because, you're doing everything else right. And if you have something here and there that's going to cause problems, what's that saying? Fill your cup and your teacup is already full, and then you add a little bit more and it spills
Yes.
over.
And it overflows. But there was a point early on, I ordered some kind of allergy test myself, and it showed that I was allergic to literally everything. There were like 5 foods that I could eat. So the being able to eat gluten, the being able to do non-Starbucks coffee, all of those things came after things had already healed and I was feeling better.
Thank you for sharing. And you talked about you being stressed because you weren't following what you thought was be authentic in dentistry.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about that part, the dental materials or the procedures that can trigger autoimmune disease?
Yeah.
Or worsen?
Man, there are so many things. I think the first thing, the one that's the most supported in the literature is always the inflammation. So inflammation, infection, we've got to calm that down first. So looking to see, are your old root canals hiding some infection? Your wisdom teeth, were they removed? Sometimes that can leave some infection in the bone if the bone doesn't heal properly. Your gums, if you've got bleeding gums, then there is an inflammatory process that is proven in study after study to increase your likelihood of having a flare up, having more symptoms of any kind of autoimmune issue. So we have to take care of that stuff first. But then when we're really trying to clean things up even further, then yeah, if we can avoid or safely remove some of the heavy metals, especially the mercury containing ones, I really, really think that that's a good idea. And then I think fluoride has more risk than it does benefit for me at the moment. And so I don't use fluoride in the practice at all either. And most of the functional medicine doctors that refer to me, it's really important that especially their Hashimoto's patient, anybody with thyroid issues, that they are avoiding fluoride at all costs, because fluoride will compete with iodine in the thyroid and will not encourage your thyroid to be in balance the way that it should be.
Thank you for sharing about the Hashimoto's. What else does fluoride do? You talked about the conflicting problems with iodine and Hashimoto's, but for other people that don't have that are like, oh, well, I can still get away with it.
This has been such an interesting area of research because, again, the way that I was taught, it was everybody who was evidence-based knew that fluoride was perfectly safe and fine. That's what I was taught. And then everybody who was scared of fluoride were saying that it is just, a government conspiracy that's meant to dumb down the population, like all the conspiracy theory stuff. And it was just those two camps. But I'll be darned, the more research that they're doing now is actually showing that higher levels of fluoride are in fact linked to a lower IQ in our children. And the problem is we don't exactly know yet what the safe dose is. And this is that's not a Toni Engram statement. That is coming from the federal government. The federal government and the National Toxicology Program, in a study that they published just a few years ago, said that they could not determine from the research what the safe dose of fluoride is. So therefore, in my mind, if we don't know exactly what that dose is that's safe versus not so safe, and we can't control the dose because it's in most of our water, which means anything that's made with tap water. So your bottled juices, your bottled sodas, some of your bottled water, your crackers, your chips, anything that's manufactured with a municipal water source is going to have fluoride in it. And if that's the case, since we can't really control the dose, I don't want myself, my family, I don't want my patients to add any more to the mix because we just don't know yet. If we can, I'm hopeful and this is controversial. Obviously, most of my colleagues don't agree with this, but I am hopeful that at some point during this administration that we will actually make steps to end water fluoridation because the evidence just isn't there to support it. And then once that happens, then we can look at the fluoride issue again. Then let's see, okay, can we use it? Can we afford to use it in our toothpaste without any risk involved? Because as it stands right now, we just don't know.
So what is it supposed to do for the mouth? I mean, why are dentists so pro for it?
Pro fluoride? Well, the reason that the water fluoridation program started, this is back World War II era, they noticed that areas that naturally had more fluoride in the water, those areas, the people had less tooth decay because fluoride does get incorporated into the tooth structure. The outer layer of your tooth enamel is made of crystals, and that crystalline structure is calcium hydroxyapatite. It's also one of my favorite ingredients in toothpaste because you can use it as an ingredient. But that calcium hydroxyapatite crystalline structure actually gets changed when you apply fluoride to the teeth. And fluoride gets incorporated into the enamel, and then it becomes a fluorapatite crystal. So the fluorapatite crystals are harder and more resistant to acid than the calcium hydroxyapatite crystals. And so that's the mechanism of why it is a useful tool at reducing the rate of tooth decay. But what we also know is that once they started, well-meaning public health officials said, great, let's add it to the water and we'll find out, what are the levels in these communities where it's naturally occurring. But they don't add the kind of fluoride that's naturally occurring because that's not efficient. That would take too much time and effort and drilling to be able to do. And so what they add is this fluorosilicic acid. They add this highly caustic waste product from the fertilizer industry, and that's what gets added into the water as the source of fluoride. And what's interesting is that, yes, the rate of tooth decay did go down significantly in the United States, enough so that the CDC says that water fluoridation is one of the best public health interventions of the 20th century. But then when you start digging a little bit more, the rate of tooth decay in every Western country, whether they fluoridated their water or not, went down at the exact same rate. So you can't really, when you actually look at the data, you can't necessarily credit fluoride with those benefits in tooth decay. Just like all of the, you can see this in other infectious diseases as well. That as our practices got better, as our water got safer, we had better hygiene practices, that all of these communicable illnesses did decrease during the same period of time. And tooth decay is no different.
It's kind of like we were talking about your health. You did all these different things to feel better. So it's not just one thing. I mean, it seems like the population just got healthier, period, because of different things, not because
a lot of things. Right. Thing. Exactly.
So frustrating. Okay. So we're talking about inflammation in the oral cavity. What is causing this oral inflammation that we are putting in our mouth or doing or affecting? I mean, other than probably fluoride, right? What else would you say is causing this inflammation?
Is causing the inflammation? It could be several things. So it could be plaque and tartar buildup. That's the first thing that the hygienist or the dentist will always go to. Oh, you just need to brush better and floss more. So that's one possible reason, but it's definitely not the only contributing factor by no means. Sometimes that inflammation is because there's just an imbalance in the bacteria. Mm-hmm. And the bacteria that cause gum disease and tooth decay, these are transmissible bacteria. You share them with anyone you're sharing a home with, anybody you're sharing smooches with. So babies and caregivers are sharing bacteria. So if you are exposed to one of those more aggressive pathogens, then they can take hold and knock things out of balance pretty quickly. And it's some of those trickier pathogens that are associated with these other systemic health effects. So that's another huge cause, is just that the wrong bacteria is in the mouth and it's had a chance to take hold. And we just need to shift the microbiome. And then a lot of times it's nothing from the mouth itself. It's from elsewhere in the body. And the mouth is just the sign that we're seeing. So it very much could be that the hormones are out of balance, that you're having an autoimmune flare-up. It could be that systemic inflammation is the cause of the gum inflammation itself. And then obviously there's diet. So important. Your diet is closer to a standard American diet. If you're eating out too much, if you're eating too many processed foods, then that by itself can cause inflammation that can throw everything out of balance.
And we briefly talked about, well, you mentioned mercury fillings, and what are the safe practices that you do in your dentist's office to help with that? And what do you use instead of mercury?
So instead of mercury, that part is actually pretty easy because most dentists are not using the silver fillings anymore. So it's a composite based, and I'm very, very picky about the composites that I use. It's the tooth colored fillings. So I try to use one that's BPA free, that's more porcelain based than it is plastic based. And then if a filling's not an option, then we're using porcelain or zirconia, something like that, that's much more biocompatible. With the mercury itself, with those old silver fillings that most of us got when we were kids, if they are clinically looking okay, you're still going to be getting a tiny little bit of mercury exposure from those fillings anytime heat or friction is applied to the teeth.
So that's all you do, pretty much. Hot food.
All you do, exactly. Chewing, brushing your teeth, grinding your teeth at night. All of those things will give you a teeny tiny little release of mercury vapor into your mouth. The tissue in your mouth is very, very absorbent, and heavy metals, especially mercury, really like fatty tissue and organs, especially your kidney and brain. But when we need to remove or replace those fillings, then think about it. What releases mercury is heat and friction. Well, what am I doing when I'm removing a dental filling? I'm taking my drill that's going at 800,000 RPM, and I'm applying that to that old silver filling. So if we're not careful, you're going to get this huge plume. If you go on YouTube and you look up the smoking tooth video, then you can find evidence of this where they show the mercury vapor exposure that can happen when you apply that heat and friction to those teeth. So during the removal process, there were a couple of groups that developed these protocols that would really protect the patient, but not only that, protect the dentist and the assistant from the mercury exposure in the room that happens when you take a drill to these things. And so I do what's called the SMART protocol. It's just stands for Safe Mercury Amalgam Removal Technique. And we make sure that everybody's covered from head to toe. We use a special respirator. We use a mask that will filter out mercury vapor. The patient, we isolate the tooth as much as humanly possible so that the only thing showing is just that one little tooth that we're working on. We have special suction devices, special air filtration in the area, just to make sure that everybody in the room is protected as much as possible. And so we'll do that until there are no more amalgam fillings left, which will probably be after I retire.
Wow. I'm lucky. I've had dental work as far as like orthodontics, but I've never had a cavity ever.
Really? Oh, that's amazing. Good
So I
job.
think I'm blessed.
Yes.
I know you mentioned the mouth is the first link to the gut, but can you explain that a little bit further for people that this is a new concept? Nobody's really talked to them about it.
Yeah. So even though it seems like it's separate, we go to separate schools than the gastroenterologist, but your digestion really does start in your mouth. You release, as soon as food enters your mouth, you increase saliva, you release these salivary enzymes that start breaking down the food. That's why some of those simple carbohydrates, they are sugar before you even swallow them, because those enzymes, everything is already breaking it down as soon as it enters your mouth. So it's just so intricately connected. First part of your digestive system, it does have a unique microbiome. So the pH is going to be different in your mouth than it is in your stomach or in your intestines. So different bacteria will thrive in each of those spots, but there is some overlap. And we can even see one that I'm actually seeing a ton in patients right now, and even in myself, is there's a bacteria called Fusobacteria nucleatum. And that specific one is linked directly to an increase in inflammatory bowel disease, and also related to, also a gum disease causing bacteria. Like you, I'm not very prone to cavities. I've only had one my entire life. So it's like a question, was that really a cavity, Dr. So-and-so, when I was 6 years old? Or were you just tired of me not having anything going on? So I'm not prone to cavities, but have a strong family history of gum disease. And when things get out of balance in my mouth, it's always inflammation in the gum tissue. And once I started testing saliva more to see what strains were actually going on in there, that specific bacteria was one that I had really high. And the time that I tested really high for it,
a flare. So how do you test your bacteria?
We do just a saliva test. It's spit in a test tube, send it to a lab. And the one that I use tests for over 700 different species of bacteria. It'll even show if there's an overgrowth of candida in the mouth, because that can be really common too. I mean, lots of people with mold issues. And so sometimes those are, candida overgrowths are associated with that too.
And anybody can order this, or is it something that they have to ask their doctor for?
You actually can. This specific test is by a company called Bristle. And so you can order Bristle yourself without a dentist. I will say that the report that you get as a consumer is not quite as detailed and not quite as robust as when you get it through me at a dental office. I'll get one more specific, and then I'm tweaking the protocols how I want them to be tweaked. But you absolutely can order it yourself.
Okay. Now, once you have you have a bad bacteria in your mouth, how do you help it?
How do you?
to bring back into the good bacteria and make sure
That's
that
where
you're well
it
broken.
gets really, really cool, because then we take this very functional medicine approach to dentistry. Once we know exactly what's in there, because different bacteria are going to respond to different things. There are some that are aerobic and they can utilize oxygen just fine. There are some that are anaerobic. And so if you've got pathogens that are anaerobic that hate oxygen, then a good way to knock those out is with stuff like ozone and hydrogen peroxide, things that add oxygen to the area. It'll kill those bacteria. They won't be able to survive. There are some bacteria that respond really well to specific probiotic strains, because the probiotics will produce these bacteriocins and like certain chemicals that will help kill those other bacteria. So they can act as sort of the protective police force in your mouth, so to say. So it really just depends. Sometimes it is putting somebody on just a good, strong antimicrobial mouth rinse for a period of time. I don't want patients on those for forever, because it's going to act like an antibiotic. Sometimes those strong mouthwashes are like Roundup for your mouth. It kills the good along with the bad. But if there are some of the scary bad guys in there, then you better believe I may take a blowtorch to your microbiome at first if we really need to knock stuff down. And then we'll do it for a short period of time, and then we're reseeding with our probiotics really quickly after that. So we can take this really strategic, targeted approach to getting things back in balance. And sometimes, honestly, sometimes it's not that hard at all. Sometimes it's rinsing with salt water for a couple of weeks just to calm things down, knock bacteria levels down just a little bit, just give the area some love. Like it's not always complicated or hard. Sometimes it's just a little bit of shifting.
Yeah. Other than salt water, can you give two other things that you do to help with this inflammation in the mouth?
I really, really like a water pick.
Mm.
So if you've never tried one, it is a worthwhile gadget to have. I would say if you have dental work or if you have a history of gingivitis or bleeding gums or anything like that, then I would say please get a water pick, because the evidence around it is just really, really good. You can use it with just water, and all the water pick is going to do is it's sort of like a backup to flossing, because it's exactly what it sounds like. It's just a little water jet that's small enough that you can get the water to go between the teeth and around the gum line, underneath any dental work that you have, and just flush the area out really well. And plain water is enough, but you can also beef it up. And because it comes with a water tank, about a couple of quarts. And so you can add a couple of capfuls of hydrogen peroxide, or you can use just a tiny little bit of whatever mouthwash you're using. Like there are all kinds of things that you can do just to gently reduce bacteria levels and get things back into balance.
Awesome. Now, here is something that I'm personally dealing with. And I know there's a lot of listeners that do have this problem also. They have Sjogren's. How do you deal with that in dentistry or help people that have Sjogren's?
Yeah. Well, the first thing I can say is, God, I feel for you, because I see how much it can cause people to just really suffer. So when we're talking about Sjogren's, anything we can do, man, I will help you find somebody if you don't already have somebody in functional medicine, some kind of naturopathic doctor, somebody who's really skilled at helping with lower autoimmunity just in general, so that we can help lessen those symptoms overall, because dentally it wreaks havoc on your mouth. It really is tough to keep up with, because when things dry out with Sjogren's, when the saliva dries out, then you're going to have more of that sticky plaque, more of the plaque that tends to encourage tooth decay and gum disease. So if you're already prone to one or the other, it will increase the likelihood that that's going to get clinical and it's going to get out of control. It will increase inflammation in the mouth, and just being dried out will shift that microbiome in a not so good direction. So in order to help treat it from the mouth, then love xylitol as a tool. That is my favorite tool for that, because it does a couple of things. It will help, for one, whatever you're using it for, it'll increase saliva in the short term. Just chewing or spraying or having something in there that's sweet like xylitol will increase the amount of saliva. It will increase the pH of the saliva, which is really helpful, because the acid is what literally causes cavities. And so if you can increase the pH, you can help the saliva buffer that acid attack on the teeth. So that can be really helpful. Xylitol is great at shifting the microbiome over time. The bacteria, some of those pathogenic bacteria, they'll ingest xylitol because it's close enough in structure to sugar that they'll ingest it, but they can't metabolize it. So those pathogens will just start to die off and slip right off of the teeth with a regular presence of xylitol. And then that will make room for more of those good bacteria to flourish again. So we really want things that are soothing. Again, salt water I think is very soothing. I use a homeopathic rinse from a company called Stella Life. That one does a really good job with any kind of dry mouth or any kind of issue that can cause inflammation or soreness in the mouth. And I really like xylitol, especially there's a dry mouth spray that has glycerin and xylitol in it. And that spray, I think, is from Spry is the brand name of that spray. And that's really helpful. Comes in a tiny little pump bottle that you can stick in your pocket or your purse and carry it with you. Set one on your nightstand at night. So little things like that just to protect the teeth and protect the mouth. But really, it's how can we help support you so that you have less of those symptoms overall?
What's one step they can improve their overall health with their oral health? I mean, you've done both. Your tribute to having autoimmune disease, but being able to thrive with it, and your dentist. So, any other tips or tricks that you're like, this is my number one go-to thing I do for my lifestyle? Because I know we talked about a lot of dentistry, but anything with lifestyle that has been a game changer.
Lifestyle game changers. Believe it or not, I think two of the most effective things are sleep and prioritizing sleep. Just making it's like your medicine. It's a non-negotiable. So get as much help with getting sleep. I mean, I'm a mom. Like sometimes it feels like sleep is optional. So whoever is in the house that can help you prioritize that, then do it, because it is one of your strongest medications that you can take. Another that may seem surprising is actually bone broth. I love it for gut health. I feel great when I'm doing bone broth. If things are feeling out of balance, I'll sometimes go on a bone broth fast because it has so many nutrients in it and it's so healing to the gut that if my gut just needs a break and a reset, then I can do some bone broth, still get all the nutrients that I need, and just let things reset on their own. It's also amazing for the health of your mouth. Amazing for it. It's got fat, it's got protein, and so it helps you get all of those fat-soluble vitamins that are so important for the health of your mouth. It's also very anti-inflammatory, so it's helpful for your gum health too. So may be surprising, but those are my biggest things is sleep and bone broth.
No, that's perfect. Thank you so much. Anything that I haven't asked or you haven't shared that you think is important for our audience to know?
I would say, and we talked about this at the beginning, I would say be encouraged. You are designed to be healthy and well. You're designed to flourish. Sometimes we just need a little extra support. We just need to give our bodies what it needs to be able to do so. So I would say stay encouraged. Your body has the ability to heal.
Thank you.